Welcome to the Lytes Out podcast. This is Chris Lytes Out Lytle, and this is our journey to document the history of mixed martial arts. I have brought with me my friend, the MMA detective Mike Davis, and together we will preserve the history and hear some great stories from the world in the era of the no-holds-barred. Thank you and enjoy.
Welcome back to the Lytes Out MMA History Podcast. I am Joey Venti. With me is the MMA detective Mike Davis. Our guest today was the first BJJ black belt from the state of Louisiana. He's a veteran of the Ultimate Fighter TV show. He's a UFC fighter who's won Fight of the Night honors and gone on to coach top UFC talent. An old coach of mine from decades ago, crazy Tim Credeur. How you doing?
I'm good, brother. How are you guys? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So,
thanks for being here.
You're one of those guys that, if you kind of look at your old interviews, you're well-spoken. You don't fold under the spotlight. Like, you can think while in the moment, and you really don't get caught up. Your ability to handle that just kind of shows like your ability to handle pressure. Where does that start at?
Grew up tough. Was a pretty smart kid early on, but I grew up, my parents did the best they could, but they had limited resources, and they were not a good fit for each other. So I grew up in a pretty tumultuous environment. I was solo pretty young, and kind of had to fend for myself in some tough neighborhoods, and I learned to be good at suffering, and I learned to be good with adversity and chaos pretty early in my life. And it's been I don't have any bad will about it. It's built me into a pretty competent individual as a business owner and as a fighter. And nowadays my goals are as a husband and as a father. So I don't have any qualms about it, really. I see how people grow up these days, and it's a lot softer. I grew up hard, man, and nothing was given to me. I had to fight for everything I got. I was lucky enough, to be on the good side of genetics when it came to like academics and reading and thinking, and I'm an avid reader, and I have been since I was young. And so I got lucky. My mom made a lot of sacrifices to, get me in private schools. I got football scholarships and stuff. And so I had a decent education. We didn't really have the money for that, but she made a lot of sacrifices in getting me good education. And I put myself through college after the military. And I've always been an avid learner. So I don't know what I attribute it to, fate, luck. I'm thankful though, everything that I went through was beneficial in the direction of my life today. So I'm grateful for the way I was raised and what I went through. It wasn't always easy, but most things worth having ain't very easy to get. So I'm incredibly thankful for it. And it's no knock against my parents. I have wonderful parents. I went to see my father yesterday for my birthday. He's wonderful. My mom's awesome, and I love him to death. It's just I was born at a time in their life when things were tumultuous, and so I got lucky. I got lucky enough to be raised in an adverse environment that strengthened a lot of fortitude and willpower and responsibility in myself. And the military helped with that. So
But you talk about responsibility. Oftentimes, people will see adversity and look at it and make them fold and give them an excuse. Other people's look at it and learn from it and try not to repeat that cycle. Obviously, we know what took place with that of yourself.
Well, but that's not really true. That's not the whole story. In my career, you see moments where I've shined or moments where I've, seemed to have come out of it ahead, I guess. But there's countless moments in my life where I've folded, I've failed. I've been crushed by pressure and by adversity and by anxiety and by, the situation. And I've I've been lucky enough to not have a net. And so I've had to pull myself up on my bootstraps and rebuild myself and keep fighting. So, maybe in this interview and in your experience with me, you've seen me come out on the right side of those things, but I can promise you, as with anybody else's life, I've come out on the wrong side of those things. Sometimes, I've failed, I've quit, I've suffered, I've had setbacks. The difference is I never had really a net to catch me. So I've had to learn to fortify myself and build myself and build my spirit and my will and my fortitude and my determination. And the benefit of that is things you've seen. But some of those things are a little later in my life and earlier. And I want that to be an example to everybody. It ain't always going to go like it went for Robbie Lawler the other night. That's just not, right. There ain't no fairy tales in fighting. And oftentimes there's not no fairy tales in life. You got to be willing to suffer. You got to be willing to face the L's and face them like a man and accept responsibility and accept accountability. And pull your bootstraps up and keep on fighting. That's the only way we win, in business or in our relationships or as a person. Life has setbacks, man. You can't let them crush you. So I just, I've had some great moments in my life, and I'm thankful for those. But I know I've had some setbacks that have, been devastating that I've had to learn to grow through. And I think that's as important. Those moments, as I look at my life and I look at what I'm teaching my children, those moments were as important in my development as the moments when I was able to stand there and be the victor. There were moments where I took a fight on 7 days' notice at 205 in Costa Rica to go fight a karate guy. And 2 days before the fight, I found out it was Chael Sonnen. And I got the shit beat out of me in front of the whole world. And, that can be devastating for fighters, and that shuts careers down when you get humiliated. But like I said, I grew up hard. I played as a kid, one thing that really built character in me, which I don't think kids are doing these days as much as they ought to. But my dad took me out. I lived in a rough neighborhood. I wanted to play football so bad. And I'm like in fourth grade or something. So my dad takes me to the local, Pop Warner football tryouts. And there's about 100 kids out there to try out. And I was the only white kid. Let me tell you something, dude. You about to get it. I made the team. They only had 24 people on the team because they only had 24 helmets. We looked like the Bad News Bears. We had different color helmets but we were just a bunch of street kids, man. And, I don't think a lot of those kids, it's just a culture back then, I'm talking about the early 90s in South Louisiana. There was racial tension, back then, especially where I live. I don't think a lot of kids really wanted me on that team, but I suffered through that. And I showed myself to be a prominent player. And I was a starter on that team. And those guys, they loved me and I loved them. But I was introduced to that level of adversity pretty early. I played for that team. We were called the Lisa Jaguars. I played for that team for 4 years until I got into middle school. And coming away from that experience, it was probably one of the best experiences of my life. I learned a lot about myself and about character. I had to ride my bike to practice. I got my bike stolen probably 5 times. I had to go re-steal it from the guy who stole it from me. Getting fist fights with their cousins. I mean, it was real. I grew up like that. And you can look back and say, oh my goodness, how horrible. But I look back and I'm thankful. Like that taught me a lot about myself and people and what I'm willing to go through to get what I want. And so I'm trying to look for those opportunities for my son. They're soft. My wife gives them everything. I mean, they get a little sweaty. She's over there with a $20 cool towel on their forehead. I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing? So I'm lucky.
Look, Tim, let's talk about, you said you work hard for things that you have. Why don't we let everybody know, I mean, you're here for a reason, about the businesses that you're running, any plugs that you'd like to kind of talk about at this time?
Oh, I don't give a shit about that. But I mean, I own Gladiators Academy in Lafayette. We have 4 locations: Breaux Bridge, Youngsville, Lafayette, Crowley. Bunch of my guys run their own gyms affiliated through me, and we have a bunch of other affiliates throughout South Louisiana that we teach jiu-jitsu, mixed martial arts, self-defense, kids, adults. We've got fighters and all that. But I also own Serve Pros. They're a water restoration, fire restoration, mold restoration, and reconstruction company. We rebuild people's houses after they've been devastated with floods or hurricanes or fires or storms. And we own those throughout Baton Rouge and South Mississippi. So I'm a busy guy. I also own and operate Bayou Fighting Championships. It's a mixed martial arts promotion. We do probably a show a month in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette, Louisiana. Yeah, so
Here,
too much stuff.
Wow.
That's a lot. So that brings us kind of into a segue in regards to the mixed martial arts culture of Louisiana. There isn't a lot of people that come from that state that make it to the UFC, but the people that do tend to make a name for themselves.
Sure.
Could you kind of bring us through exactly like what your vision is of what's happening there?
Well, I mean, I think it's I don't know, it's kind of hard, and when I look at guys that I've worked with, kids like Dustin Poirier or AJ Fletcher or Matt Schnell, I guess as a coach, you want to believe you have this great significance, and you're gonna do a bunch of stuff but let's be honest, dude, Dustin Poirier could have been born in a well and became Dustin Poirier. He's just an incredible human being and an amazing fighter. I was lucky enough to be there and be a part of his career and help lead him and guide him. And I think I always tell people this, a lot of people, and I think it's people. I feel like the word talent is such a bullshit word because, talent, the word talent comes from when Greek mothers used to take their babies up to the top of the mountains to the Greek oracles. And the money they used then was called talons. And so what they would do is they'd bring the babies to these filthy old men who kept a bunch of young virgins all drugged up and raped them all day. I guess they weren't virgins after that, but and what they did was they would give the talons to the oracle, and then the oracle would tell the mom the things that this child was going to be gifted at in their life. That dude didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Like, that's crazy. That's where we got the word talent from. Some filthy old man on a mountain with a bunch of little girls who you gave some money to and he told you what your kid was going to be good at. That's whack. That's about as valuable as the word talent. Is Dustin Poirier talented? I mean, yeah, I guess he's talented. But you know what he's most talented at? He showed up at my gym 3 times a day for 2 or 3 hours at a time and trained until his hands were bleeding. That's what he's talented at. It didn't matter if he was tired. It didn't matter how hard he trained. It didn't matter. He'd work an 8-hour shift. He'd be at my gym before work. He'd be at my gym after work. And he killed himself. When you pair athletic ability and his gifted, he's a smart guy. Sometimes he says I only went to 9th grade or whatever. Don't let it fool you, bro. Dustin Poirier could have went to Harvard. He's a smart individual, as shown by all the businesses he owns and all the stuff he's done in his career. But, when athletic ability meets work ethic and that kind of perseverance and dedication, it creates great champions. And that's what I've seen in all the guys that I've trained. Dustin is like that. AJ Fletcher's like that. Matt Schnell's like that. They were kids who just were born hard like I was born hard. And they refused to quit. And setbacks didn't set them back. They were dedicated to their craft. And they were able to see someone else like me who maybe wasn't the greatest athlete or didn't have the greatest anything, but was just able to will himself to be successful, to work himself to be successful. And although they were much more talented than I was, I use that bullshit word, but much more gifted athletically than I was with work ethic, they were able to become amazing athletes. And I think you see the same thing from guys like Kurt Hollabaugh and Jason Knight. You know, that's the thing about guys from down here. It's a tough place to come from. It's a tough place to make it. And once guys get to that level, you know they've been through the blender to get there. There's no paper champions coming from down here. If you make it from down here, you're for real. And I think that's kind of what you see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jason Knight, he on the Ultimate Fighter on the Comeback Show. All right. So I've got a lot of notes on you in regards to the people that have worked out in your gym. I never saw you and Jason cross paths. Did you guys train at all together?
I'm sure we trained together a couple times, but we've known each other for 20 years. I mean, I was at jiu-jitsu tournaments when he was a blue belt reffing his matches. And so we've always known each other. There was a lot of times where I came out here to Biloxi to work with Alan when Alan and I were fighting at the same time. And I kind of helped Alan a lot with his jiu-jitsu. And Jason was always in the gym. So I'm sure we trained plenty of times. I don't really remember, remnants of CTE in my mind. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure we worked together a number of times. We've been knowing each other forever. He's a great guy, man.
Dude, it's one of our favorite interviews. One of the best.
He's a wild animal.
Yeah, one of the best interviews.
It's like interviewing a raccoon. It's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, he was ripping bong hits while doing the interview. We had a phenomenal interview with that guy.
He's hilarious, dude.
Well, I heard a rumor about you that in the late 90s, while stationed in the military, you were taking fights in Tijuana.
Yeah.
Is that true?
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, there's no record of that. Would you mind kind of bringing us through it? Because that's truly the NHB era.
When the UFC was like, or back then, late 90s, there were some guys in Tijuana who did MMA shows on an off night where they did Mexican wrestling matches at a bullfighting ring in TJ. And they had like Marines and Navy dudes fighting each other. No one really was that great, I didn't. And they matched us up about an hour and a half before we actually fought. And there was no real weigh-ins. This is like way back in the day. I fought guys with Vans tennis shoes on. I fought dudes in jeans. I know I fought some people who were kind of drunk for sure. Like I smelled some people who were drunk. But we didn't really know what we were getting. Yeah, we didn't really know what we were getting into. I was wearing like those old Boxergenics gloves back then. So we didn't really know what we were getting into. We just heard that there was some NHB matches out there that we could do. So we'd pair up with some guy and we'd go out there and we did 5-minute matches, and we do 3 5-minute matches, 3 5-minute rounds. I never had a fight go more than 3 minutes. Eventually, I'm like, dude, this is terrible. What am I doing to these people? But there were some guys there who trained. There were some guys from Vernon Tiger White had a Lions Den in San Diego back in the day, back then. And some of his guys would kind of go out there, and some of the guys from that competed at Codge's Cage Combat. There was a Codge's Cage Combat in Southern California, like in the LA area, where they did pedigree style, open hands. And some of those guys would go out there. So there was a couple of people who knew what they were doing. But I don't even really thought like anybody who knew what they were doing other than one time I fought a judo guy, but he was terrible. I probably had 7 or 8 fights out there. And I remember if you won, you got $50 and drink tickets, like a bracelet to get into Club A and People's and some other club in TJ, and you could go drink all night.
Yeah. So this is what you were stationed in the Navy.
I fought a Mexican wrestler one time with a mask on. I fought a guy with a mask on, Mexican wrestler with a mask on. I felt terrible. I beat the shit out of him, and after I gave him my $50 because he said he only made $20 a night to wrestle. And he was taking care of his family. I felt horrible. I gave him his money. His mask was all fucked up. I thought he could buy a new one.
Man, it's a hard way to make a living. All right, so you were in the Navy. Did your start with Rodrigo Medeiros, or did you have prior training?
No. Mm-mm. I went to the Gracie Academy a couple times, and then I hooked up with a guy in Southern California in San Diego who competed in the first Abu Dhabi. He was a brown belt under Nelson Montero. His name was Micah Pittman. And if you look up Micah, he fought in like the first two Abu Dhabis, I think. He was a brown belt under Marcelo Prater. And
98,
there was
99.
another guy out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
1998,
98,
99. Those were the first two Abu Dhabis.
Wait, who was the guy? Remember the guy, the Sheikh? Because right before I got there, if you guys don't know this, Sheikh Tanun bin Zayed went to UCSD. That's what college he graduated from. Oh, Nelson Montero, that's his name. So Nelson Montero is a Gracie Baja black belt, and he was in San Diego. Had a little Gracie Baja affiliate in the late 90s. Well, one of his students was Sheikh Tanun bin Zayed, and he went to UC San Diego, and they trained like in a garage or some kind of shoddy spot. Well, all the guys back then trained with him. Micah trained with the Sheik, and Nelson was the instructor, Nelson Montero. Marcelo Pereira was a brown belt under Nelson. And so they had a little camp there, like Charlie Kolar trained there, Micah Pittman, a bunch of those kind of old school guys back in San Diego. I think Charlie has San Diego Fight House or something now. And so Tanun graduated and moved back to the Middle East and took Nelson with him. And Nelson went out there and started teaching with Ricardo Moraes and a bunch of other, Sean Alvarez. All those guys were kind of from the San Diego area. And Sean kind of, I think, got silver in 1999, 98 in heavyweight. And then when he left, Micah opened his own little spot as a brown belt. And so we were in the basement of his dad's church. And his dad's church was called Sunrise, but S-O-N Rise, Sun, like the Son of God Rise. I probably shouldn't have been training there, but I was over there. And I loved it. I trained with a bunch of dudes. I trained with him for about 2 years. And then Batiste Mansouri and Romy Aram and Javier Vasquez snatched me at some tournament one time when I was just jack smashing some blue belts at a tournament in Rancho Cucamonga. They were like, dude, where are you from? I was like, well, I'm in San Diego. I got a school, but I'm about to move to LA. They were like, well, dude, come hang out with us. We're going to go have lunch. There's a Brazilian dude we want you to meet. He's kind of our instructor. And this is like 98, I think. And so we left and we went to the Brea Mall, Southern California, and I met Rodrigo. And he told me to come train with him, and he was happy to meet me. And he was so nice to me. I don't know if you know Rodrigo. He's like Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
I don't ever deserve to have been given the influence that guy gave me. He's an unbelievable human, but he made me feel amazing, like from the minute I met him. And I moved to San Diego, Los Angeles shortly after I got out of the military, moved to LA. I moved to Vatos Norwalk, SA. I still rep my set out there. I'm still Mexican.
Got some questions about Norwalk.
So I lived in Vatos Norwalk, and we had a school in La Habra. It was actually Rodrigo had a purple belt under him whose dad owned a house in La Habra, and we broke down all the walls in the house and then built 2x4 square, put some shredded tires and some vinyl on top, and that was Carlson Gracie, Los Angeles, Playboy. And that's where I was training. I thought I was in heaven. I thought it was the greatest place in the universe.
You made it.
When my girlfriend came visit me and I brought her to the gym, she was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You're in this is a destroyed ramshackle house. You're talking about this place like it's Disney World. I'm like, it is Disney World. You better recognize. So yeah, I used to drive to La Habra from Norwalk, and I put myself through college at Fullerton College and then Cal State Fullerton. Yep.
Now, when you arrived at Norwalk, there's a lot of rumors that this white boy from the Bayou moves right into the barrio. And you had to do a
Right
little bit of
in.
fighting to get some respect.
Oh,
I heard they
Lord,
called you
did I
Pinky.
just... Yeah, one time I was I didn't know what that was. I'm from Louisiana. We don't know what being pink means, you know? And so I don't know if you're from Norwalk, but in Norwalk, our landlord was one of the guys on the Navy's, his dad. So one of the things we were required to do was water the yard 3 times a week. And so being from South Louisiana, I'm like, water the yard? The fuck are you? Why? What are you talking about? Why would you water the yard? See, because all the grass is going to die, dumbass. I said, why would all the grass die? I didn't even realize that the summers were so hot and it didn't rain. That I didn't even realize what was going on. So I had to water the grass 3 times a week, part of my rent, you know? So I'm watering the grass in the front yard. I lived on Dome Mart in Norwalk, not a nice area. No AC, just a concrete cinder block house. I'm watering the yard and these 3 girls walk by like some cholas. And they, what's up, SA? You pink, SA? What's up, SA? You pink? You pink, SA? And I'm like, oh, damn. I must have got sunburned. What happened? So I finished watering the yard and my friend gets home and I go inside. I'm like, yo, do I look sunburned? He's like, what? I said, do I look sunburned? I put sunblock on, but am I sunburned? He was like, no. Why are you saying that? I said, I don't know. These 3 girls passed by. They said I'm pink. He busted out laughing. He said, they talking about your dick, dumbass. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, they talking about your dick because you're like a white boy. You have like a pink dick. Like, you know, like Mexicans have brown dicks. I'm like, I don't know what color dicks Mexicans got. How's fucking am I supposed to know?
That's a trick question. That's a trick
He was
question.
like,
and I passed.
you're pink. You're pink. She's calling you a pussy. Like, you're pink, you know? I'm like, man, fuck these bitches. So I see them coming back down the street. So I go back outside and I turn my hose on and act like I'm still hosing my yard. They pass by. I don't know if you've seen Cholas back in the day, but they heads is put on, dude. They got their hair and their makeup and stuff. I slaughtered them with that hose, dude. I slaughtered all 3 of them. Just doused them all. Now, about 20 minutes later, 3 dudes came running down the street, juiced up in dickies and tattoos. I beat the shit out of them in the front yard, dude. They kept sending dudes to that house. I was doing straight fist fights under the orange tree in the front yard at Dome Mart. Man, it was a tough area though. We got shot at a couple times. A crazy area. But at that time in my life, you know, I couldn't really afford much. Like I said, I didn't have parents to fall back on and stuff, you know. I had a little GI Bill paying for some of my college, and I was bartending a couple of nights a week, and I was doing jiu-jitsu in college. That was it. So I had an orange tree in the front yard and an avocado tree in the backyard. So I figured I was never going to starve. And all I had to do was knock some cats out every once in a while. It was fun.
You know, it was a different time back then. Different time.
Yeah, definitely. Way different. Way different.
Things were settled with the fist rather than a gun. And, you know, both combatants, hey, man, we're going to figure this out. Let's talk about your first.
But, you know, that was it, though. We'd get in some fist fights, and I'd crack a dude, and he'd fall down, he'd get back up, I'd crack him again. He'd get up, shake my hand, and leave. I was like, okay, I guess that's how we do it.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. Whatever.
Let's talk about your first professional fight that's on record. March 24, 2001. Rage in the Cage, Kevin Denz. Was this, I know you had fought in Tijuana prior, but at this moment, was this something that really meant a lot to you, like you finally arrived, or did you already have that based on your experiences in Tijuana?
Man, you know, I don't know. Like, you know, back then it wasn't like today. You know, you look at things today and people are kind of like, were you always wanting to be a UFC? I'm like, man, I don't even know what the fuck we were doing. What you mean? I got in a verbal altercation at the weigh-ins with John McCain, that show. We almost all got arrested. It was in Arizona. If you remember, John McCain was a senator, I think, in Arizona. And at that time, he was trying to shut down MMA in the state. And so his, I don't know, entourage or whatever had set up a platform at that Rage in the Cage, and they were trying to shut the show down. And Roland Soria thought the show was going to get shut down because that's when he was saying it was human cockfighting and stuff. And so, of course, I yelled out a bunch of
truths. You yelled out a bunch of truths, is what you did. Were you in the military at this time?
No, I was out of the military.
Okay.
I don't think so. What year was that fight?
2001, March 24th.
No, I was out of the military.
All right. So
I was out of the military at that time.
It couldn't have affected you professionally at that point. Yeah, Kevin Denz is your opponent. Did you remember that fight, or was it just one of those first fight, like pro jitters?
Absolutely. I 100% remember. No doubt. Did you ever see that fight?
I have not, but Roland Soria is one of those promoters that when people talk about, they've got to take a deep breath, pause, and then just kind of carefully say their words afterward.
Why?
He's ripped off a lot of our former guests on here.
Oh, yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But
dude, put it on the board.
Yeah, he's kind of. I mean, he never was a piece of shit for me. He was cool. I only fought for him once. He was completely cool with me. But I remember that fight happened. Like Todd Medina called me, and he was like, "Yo, what's up?" I would train with Todd a lot, actually. Todd was actually a huge mentor
Todd
of mine.
Medina. Okay.
Yeah, I used to go back out and train with him. He had a little spot out in near Newport Beach, and a bunch of heads used to go out there and train. And so I'd go over there and train with Todd. He was a training partner with Rodrigo and Carlson, so he was in our network. And so Todd called me, and I said, "Yeah, for sure, let's do it. I'll go." And I went out there and I fought Kevin. I showed my sons this fight, and they're humiliated, actually. Completely humiliated. So I don't know if you guys know this, but back in the day in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, especially in the late 90s, all the Brazilians wore Speedos to train. Yeah.
Yes.
It's weird, dude. And so, but when I first got there, I mean, I thought it was weird. But then eventually when you get submitted 357 times by Luis Brito in black Speedos, you start to think maybe black Speedos are cool.
That's what's working. That's
this
the
dude
key.
Fucked me up so many times. Yeah, Rodrigo had this guy Luis Brito. He's from South Brazil, Porto Alegre, Florianopolis area. He's a black belt under Mario Spirit, I think. He came down for like a year and taught at the school while Rodrigo was in San Diego, and they kind of flip-flop. And so I trained with Marcelo Brito a lot, Mauricio Brito a lot, and he wore black Speedos. So I had my fight, and I just decided to wear Speedos. Yeah, in an MMA fight.
Wait. Did you win by submission that fight?
With his elbow pressed tightly against my nutsack. Sure did.
Do you know what that means? The black Speedos worked. Okay.
Fuck it. Whatever.
They worked.
I did flying knees in black Speedos. I was mount ground and pounding Speedos. I armbarred him against my nutsack. No care, dude. I thought it was the greatest thing on earth. And to be honest with you, up until about a year ago, I still thought it was the greatest thing. But when I showed my two sons this video, both of them looked absolutely traumatized. They're watching the video like this. Dad, what are you going to wear that in the fight? I'm like, yeah, it was cool back then. My son Henry says, it ain't cool today.
That's good stuff.
So, yeah. And actually, you know what, dude? The other day, Kevin Denz hit me up like 6 months ago. He said, "Hey, bro, what's up, dude? It's good to see you." He looked me up on Instagram. So, yeah, I caught him with an armbar in probably a minute and a half.
Yeah, I got in the first round.
Throwing bombs. He shot on me. I pulled guard, triangle, armbar, party's over. Got a shitty little belt from Roland worth 50 cents. You know.
So it was the first. It was a title fight, which means Denz was the ticket seller at the A side. So you ruined the party.
I did that way worse one other time in my career.
Well, here let's stick with this one right now. What did you get paid?
Oh, I don't know, $50.
Maybe for a pro fight. Was it a main event?
I don't even know.
Well, if it's a title fight, it's probably the main event.
I don't think I knew it was a title fight till after it was over, and this chick gave me that.
The main event was The main event was actually Edwin Deweese and Christoph Leninger. That's how far back we're going.
Yeah. That's wild. Okay. Well, how did you hook up? I mean, were you living in Arizona at the time?
No, Roland Soria contacted Todd Medina.
And
so
they
Todd
pay
was
for
already
travel?
bringing. We rode in a van, like 10 of us.
How many hours?
I don't know, 6 or 8 hours. It was a bit.
Man, for $50. That was guys that wanted to fight, man. It wasn't even about.
But dude, we weren't fighting for that. Like none of us were fighting for money. None of us thought we were gonna have a career. None of us gave a fuck. You don't know what we were fighting for? I was fighting for Rodrigo.
Oh.
I wanted to show Rodrigo like we could do it too. You know, we didn't give a shit about. There was no career. There was no money. No one was doing well. I was training with Tito Ortiz at the time in Huntington Beach sometimes, and he's fighting in the UFC, and he lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. So I knew those guys weren't even making money, dude. I was training at the Huntington Beach Fight Center when Rampage Jackson was living in his car and working at a club in Huntington Beach selling ecstasy to people and shit. He was living in his car at the Huntington Beach Fight Center. Yeah.
Allegedly selling ecstasy.
You know, Dan Henderson was in the room, Chuck Liddell was in the room, Tito was in the room, and everybody was broke. So I never thought there was any money in MMA. Like, even the dudes who were fighting at the level I wanted to fight at were driving an old busted down pickup truck. Dan Henderson's pickup truck looked like it was from the 30s.
So this was the Lions Den time. Did you ever have any contact with them at all?
Yeah, I've trained with them sometimes. A couple times I went to San Diego, train at Vernon Tiger White's, but never up in Lodi and all that.
Okay. So did you ever go out, hang out, party with those guys?
No. I'm not a partier.
I tell you, we've had some former Lions Den members on.
I don't party.
That told stories that are just mind-blowing. Like, it sounded like, I mean, you mentioned ecstasy earlier. That gets brought up quite a bit in those interviews.
I didn't go to any of those clubs. Like, I'm not like that. Like I said, I grew up kind of hard, you know? So when you grow up the way I grew up, you go one of two ways. You either grow hard into that life, or the effects of that life have affected you in a way where you go the other way. And so, you know, my wife and I have been together since 1999, and she's probably seen me drunk twice.
Good move.
And like, I don't do nothing. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. You know, I got a lot of pain and CTE from I don't know, man, you know, 25, 26 years of doing jiu-jitsu. So I smoke a little joint every once in a while. I'm prescribed, and I might smoke a joint 2 or 3 nights a week. But that's about it. Like, I don't really like taking prescription medication, or I don't take nothing.
Do you microdose with psilocybin?
Fuck no.
Have you looked into it in regards to CTE?
No. I was raised by drug addicts. I'm good.
Yeah, a little different. It's highly, highly suggestive. It's like a vitamin for your brain. Your second fight, May 17th.
I've heard some of that with peptides, though. I'm thinking about that.
On May 17, 2002, King of the Cage, you fought. If they were King of the Cage, you had a Hall of Fame. Joey Villasenor would be one of those first ballot guys. Hall of Fame career, you know, through King of the Cage. That is not an easy second fight.
No. Almost beat him, though. I think I won. What did I lose? Did I lose in the third round? Third round.
I got
second or third round?
Second.
I think I won the first round. I took him down a bunch of times. I was really dominating him. Dude, he was so athletic. The second round, I took him down. He got out. I think it was a knee on belly or something. He blasted out. I started to get kind of tired. He hit me with a flying knee and then smashed me. And then after, I remember talking to my wife and asking her what my toe number was. Phone number backwards, though. He got me.
Wow. That was a great back and forth fight.
Yeah, we were battling, dude. But I remember after that fight, a couple of days later, once I kind of had my brain back, I remember thinking, man, that was a blast. I think I really want to do this. That was so much fun, you know. And other guys, you know, at the time, you know, losing was like the worst thing ever. Um, it back in that time, you know, losing meant you weren't going to be Rickson Gracie, which is just complete bullshit shenanigans anyways. But like back in the day, everybody thought they were going to be Rickson and they were going to be 600-0. And so once I got beat up, I was like, well, I mean, that really is not that bad. It was a blast. I had a lot of fun. I don't really give a shit if I'm not Rickson Gracie. Why would I be Rickson Gracie anyway?
Formidable opponent as well. I mean,
and I had so much fun. So that kind of inspired me to just keep on fighting, you know, and just. But I never ever thought I was gonna be a fighter where that was my career. Never.
Well, here, Lloyd Villasenor,
very later.
One of the main coaches over at Jackson Wink. Mm-hmm. He's somebody that is absolutely underappreciated. Yeah. Has blown me off several times for interviews too, I might add. However, you had mentioned
he's a great guy.
Yeah. No, I've met him. Yeah, I agree. You mentioned Rickson
Gracie. We hooked
Gracie.
up at some fights a while back.
Mm-hmm. You had mentioned Rickson Gracie. I had heard a rumor that you took a private lesson with him at one point.
Fucking destroyed me. Took my soul away. Not in a bad way, in a good way. I went to Pacific Palisades. Back in the day when I was at school there. It wasn't easy to do a private with him, though. I had to pay, and then it took a couple months. I think he was traveling. I don't know. But I bought an hour private lesson. I think it was $350, $400 or something. It was probably 2.5 hours that he taught me how to hip escape, taught me how to move my hips, taught me all kind of shit. Did a seminar, rolled with me for an hour. No shit. And whatever anybody has ever told you about the legend of Rickson Gracie, whatever anybody ever said, it was true. It was probably undersold. The dude felt like, I don't even know. And I was a good blue belt at the time. I was competing a lot. I was on the all-Navy judo team. I had probably 50 competitions under my belt. I wasn't a bum. You know, I wasn't a white belt. I've been doing jiu-jitsu probably 3 or 4 years with a bunch of Carlson Gracie black belts. This dude felt like, I don't know, dude, magic. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, Tim, my jiu-jitsu heroes, my heroes of jiu-jitsu all say that. But then, like, you know, the tinfoil hat skeptic in me says, well, let's look at his competition record. Like, never did ADCC. Alan Goes, you know, never went up against Alan Goes, who was undefeated for like 9 years in Brazil. You know, I think it's just more like I'm sad we didn't get to see him compete more so than it is me questioning.
You know, I felt some of that, a little bit of that when I for a bit, Rodrigo would send me to Jean-Jacques in LA. Him and Jean-Jacques were close. And so I'd go to Jean-Jacques and hang out with Eddie and Joe Rogan and train at Jean-Jacques on Fridays, because on Fridays, his wife didn't come to the gym. So if I came, he told me if I come on the Friday morning class when his wife wasn't there, she wouldn't kick me out. Well, because I didn't have a membership at his gym, you know? And so she's Brazilian. So like,
someone's got to rule the rules.
If you were up. Yeah, dude. So she kind of ran the shit, you know? So he would say, team, you can come Friday morning. Well, you just do class quick and get out, you know? If you see my wife, just go to the bathroom, back door. And so he was super cool though. But I kind of felt that a little bit of that magic with Jean-Jacques too. You know, he was incredible. But dude, Rickson was just, I don't know. It was like he had a superpowers. And I've felt that with some guys. I rolled with some tough dudes in my life. I rolled with like some of the best people on earth. And I've felt great guys. Rickson, I don't know what. a different type of jiu-jitsu, a different feeling, a different movement, just masterful, just destroyed. Nothing I did worked. Like everything I did was like the worst thing I could have done. You know what I mean? Like everything I did was like, why would I have done that? Why? It just demolished me, man. I left there confused.
Another person.
And then after that, I tried to do a couple more private lessons. And I think Henry was running the gym at the time, Henry Akins. And I'd call Henry, and he'd be like, dude, he's out of town, bro. He's in like Japan, bro, or Brazil, bro. And I could never get another private with him, Henry was like the front desk worker. I don't know if you knew that, but like Henry Akins like had a notepad and a phone and a little $5 desk at the front of Hickson School. And he stood there and took your money and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hickson was unbelievable.
Liborio also has that aura about him, Ricardo Liborio.
Yeah. I've trained with Liborio a couple times. He's always pretty nice to me. I never, by the time I trained with Liborio, I was older and he was older and we were training like friends, Not that Hickson wasn't training like friends, but I don't know. Just
different. It's different.
It was different for sure.
That's good. Rich Clementi, first person out of Louisiana to make it to the UFC. What was your relationship like with him?
Great. We opened a gym together. Me and Rich and Kyle Bradley opened the first Gladiators Academy in Louisiana in 2003 in Baton Rouge. And Rich came from a different background than I did, Rich came from Jersey, and his education in mixed martial arts was more the Midwest style. He kind of was going out to the Militech camp and like with the Militech crew for a bit. And so he kind of influenced me with a completely different training style than we did in my jiu-jitsu education. But truthfully, my MMA education really began to flourish a little bit before me and Rich, if you don't mind me changing topics.
Of course, dude, 100%.
I went down to Louisiana. A promoter called me, Chad Robichaux, called me from Louisiana and said, hey, I'm putting on a show in your hometown in Lafayette in 99 or 2000, maybe 2001. I don't remember. But it's in Lafayette. And I'd like you to fight on the card. And I said, sure. And so I went down and I fought Bone Siva Bongsfa from Baylor. And Yves Edwards had a couple guys on the card at that time. And his guys had some decent fights. And then I was training a little bit at this place in Van Nuys called the Muay Thai Academy of America. It's in Van Nuys, California. It's like a whole kind of shithole Thai boxing place. So I was doing a little Muay Thai over there. I fought Bone. I hit him a couple times, and then I kneed him in the face, knocked him out pretty quick, maybe like 13 seconds. So Yves probably kind of thought I was better than I was. It looked good, but, And so after the fight, Yves was like, hey, where do you live? And I said, I live in Southern California, but, I come back to Lafayette, and I come back to Houston sometimes because my mom and stepdad live in Houston. He was like, well, dude, I have a school of Thug Jitsu's in Houston in the Woodlands. And I said, awesome.
Let me interject. At this time, Yves Edwards was probably number one in the world at 155 pounds. His style and ability and his approach to mixed martial arts, I think it revolutionized the sport, my personal opinion.
This was kind of right after he knocked out João Perini in UFC 37.5. It was like right about that time.
Dude, that's old school.
Yeah. And so I came back and visited my mom maybe 3 or 4 months later in Houston. And I went up to his school and we trained, and he beat the shit out of me. And then I beat the shit out of him on the ground. And he beat the shit out of me standing up. And we were like, man, and we really liked each other. Like I said, I was raised in a tough community. So him and I got along well. We kind of had an affinity. So he said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "I don't know, going to church with my mom, I guess." He said, "Well, hey, I'm going to go meet at another friend of mine's gym out in downtown by the Astrodome if you want to come." I said, "Okay." So me and him went train at Saul Solitz's gym, Patumwadi. And that was on Naomi at the time, back in the old school next to the Astrodome in Houston. And man, we just had a great practice that day. And him and Saul said, "Man, would you ever be willing to move to Houston?" And I said, "Sure. My girlfriend, who I'm in love with, is about to leave me if I don't do something, because I'm in Los Angeles and she's in Lafayette, Louisiana." So I packed up and finished school, and I transferred to the University of Houston. And me and Eves and Jeff Messina opened Revolution Dojo. I think there's 4 of them now. And then I taught a little bit at Thug Jitsu, and I taught for Saul Solitz as well. And so that's where I really like started learning MMA for real. Saul was an incredible trainer, and I'd already trained with Tito and Rico Rodriguez and all those guys. I was training with him in Southern California. So when they found out that I was at Saul's, they started doing training camps in Houston. Rico Rodriguez did his training camp with us. I was his jiu-jitsu coach when he fought Randy Couture and won the title. And then
really,
Tito did a bunch of camps with us in Houston as well. He'd come to Houston for 3 or 4 weeks, and then he'd go to Big Bear.
Were you in Rico's corner at any of his UFCs?
No.
Okay, because I didn't see.
I had a real job at the time. I was a district manager. I always had real jobs, man.
All right, you real quick before we get too far off the beaten path. You had mentioned Saul Solitz. Obviously, he has passed.
Yeah.
What is your best memory of him?
Hard to talk about, Saul was kind of I don't know, man. I think for everybody who comes up under Saul, like me, Eves, the kids that are fighting in the UFC now,
Rampage, Tito,
he just had an ability to like make you believe in yourself, He made me believe like I could do it, dude. He made me believe that I could do it. And I don't think up until I met Saul, I was just working, going to school, and I fought sometimes, I guess. And I taught jujitsu. I really loved jujitsu, so I was always teaching jujitsu at Saul's school or wherever. And but man, Saul just made me believe in myself. He was just a incredible coach and mentor and person, and just never got the credit he deserved, really, but man, he was unbelievable, and it's tough, I think with kind of what happened with Saul, you just struggle, like, did I tell him thank you? Did I let him know how much I appreciated him, before he died, and I don't think any of us do, I think, I saw a thing after he died, like, what is grief, and grief is just, love and respect that you never got to show when they were alive. When people die, the grief you have is all the love and respect that's left over that you never got to show them. And so I have a lot of that when it comes to Saul. He was an amazing influence in my life and just an incredible person. But he was the guy who kind of showed us how to really train for MMA. He was the guy who showed us how to put everything together. He was the guy who showed us how to wrestle and then ground and pound and then get up and hit pads. And then he really is the one who started the Shark Tank, like where we'd fight 5 or 6 dudes in a round and just be getting fucked up the whole time. But he would make sure the training partners kept it at a level to where we could get through it. But by the time 3 5-minute rounds lasted, I thought my heart was going to explode. He was the guy who first took MMA and took it from a multidisciplinary sport and turned it into a single discipline sport. When you went to Saul's, you didn't get to decide which you were training. Like, you didn't get to be like, today we're doing stand-up or we're doing wrestling. Or Saul was like, no, we doing whatever the fuck I say. You can do what I say. Bring all your shit every practice.
So important. He was a coach. Yeah. He was an actual coach. There's a huge difference between some people going to a gym and just live rolling the entire time. Another time, a guy saying, stop, get over here. This is what we're working on.
Doing.
Yeah. I mean, even Muhammad Ali had a coach. You got to have, no matter how talented you are, you got to have somebody you listen to.
I remember after practice, you remember back in the day, those little shitty weights they had at Walmart, like the rubber weight with the concrete in them, those little trashy weights. I remember after we'd finish practice and he'd make us pick up one of those and like hold it on our chest and run 100-yard sprints. And then do a bunch of I was just like, he's just making up shit for us to do. He's just finding shit on the ground and making us run around with it. But later on in life, I see like the training lab and all these high-level, high-tech, highly educated dudes now, and they're doing all that shit. And I'm like, dude, Saul was like
genius.
20 years before his time, you know, and none of us, we even know it.
In my opinion, if there was a trainer wing of the Hall of Fame, Saul Solitz, I mean, we've talked about, first ballot Hall of Fame right there. There's another guy. Did you ever work out with Lewis Wood, or was that before you? Because that's who gave Eve his start.
Did I work out with Lewis Wood? Listen, partner, Lewis Wood beat the fucking brakes off of me on hundreds of occasions, dude.
So
that motherfucker drove up in his truck. I was like, man, fuck, I thought he was at the firehouse tonight, dude. Is he coming tonight? He used to be like, yeah, you better get your mouthpiece. Dude, he would. There was a real story. One time, my wife, I'd been winning some fights, and I'm at Eve's one time, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to box today with Lewis. You want to come? Because she had something to do. And she was like, yeah, I'll come hang out. I said, I'm only going to be about an hour. So Lewis put me through a warm-up, and then we put gloves on. And for me, I was used to it. He beat the fucking shit out of me every time. So I didn't even know the difference, I was fine, whatever. Well, after the practice is over, we get in the car, and my wife's sitting in the passenger seat. And she's like, I'm like, what's wrong? You okay? She was like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. She was like, that little man beat the fucking shit out of you the whole practice. I'm like, yeah, that's every practice. My wife was like, why do you keep going? Tim, you didn't do one thing right. You just got the shit beat out of you the whole practice. I'm like, well, he's my boxing coach. My wife was like, boxing coach? He looked like he should have caught some assault and battery charges for that, dude. He fucked you up. So, yes, I was very, very, very educated by Lewis Woods for sure. And he was an awesome coach, man. He definitely helped me out a lot, helped Ease out a lot. I never got as good under him as I wanted to, but yes, he beat the shit out of me all the time.
So right around this time, just so everybody knows, it's an incredibly pivotal period in mixed martial arts. Lewis Wood was the first actual boxer with actual international respect that came over and started training these MMA guys.
Yeah.
And Eve Edwards got put, we addressed it in our interview with him, right around the time he fought Nick Aguilar. He got put in this horrible position where he had two phenomenal head coaches. And you can only have one head coach. You can't have two. Otherwise, you kind of get stuck in the middle. And Eve had to go with Saul Solitz. And it's something that, like, the way he answered the question, you can tell it hurt him today. But he had to think of himself in order to push himself forward.
Yeah, yeah. But Lewis was a very pivotal trainer for us. Definitely.
Did you ever work out with Carlo Prater? You like this? You think I know these answers, Sam?
The one of my greatest friends. Yeah, for sure. Years and years. I was there when Carlo arrived in Houston, and I was the other side of his coaching team. He was with Yves, me, and Lewis. So I was his jiu-jitsu coach, and yeah, we're very, very close friends.
So
Very
Carlo,
close.
in terms of like,
I named him Neo. Yves didn't name him Neo. I did.
all right. So in terms of like,
we debate that point. But.
You're interviewing with us today. I'm agreeing with you. So everybody can kind of understand, like everybody's friends with somebody that's got a very, very unique story. We started this interview with Tim, obviously very unique in the way he brought up. Carlo Prater's father was a preacher.
I know.
And went to Brazil to preach the word of the Lord.
As a missionary.
As a missionary. So you got an
Carlo grew up poor as a missionary, dude.
He grew up in like the poorest areas of Brazil as an American, speaking
son
Portuguese as a second language, son of a missionary, and he found the fight game.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he's unbelievable, dude. I thought he was going to be Robbie Lawler, honestly. I think he took some weird fights. I think he moved back to Brazil. I think some circumstance happened with Carlo, but and honestly, I think Carlo could have been one of the greats.
Yeah, in fact, I think the worst thing you can have is a brave manager, because they always put you in crazy fights. But another thing is you can always, manage yourself and then just go, wait a minute, I can do that, and
fight everyone.
Fight everybody.
He took a bunch of dumb fights for sure.
Yeah, him and Keith Wisniewski had a trilogy. Incredible set of fights right there.
Yeah.
MMA eruption. You go out to Lowell, Massachusetts. So you're kind of bouncing all over. So Arizona, Nevada, Louisiana, and now you're in Lowell, Massachusetts. This is not a traditional course of somebody starting their fight career.
No.
Yeah, you fought Lance Everson.
Yep. The main event. It was for the title. It was his hometown. He had a pretty good record. He had more fights than me, I believe. And his coach picked us up at the airport. I was like, oh, God, this is going sideways. And anyway.
Wait. That is a benchmark of bad news. You're there to lose. And he probably didn't tell you he's the coach. He just picked your brain first.
He did.
Okay, that's fair. Okay.
Mike Littleton, I think was his name. Mike Littleton was his coach. Yeah. We fought at the Songus Arena. Mm-hmm. And so, the guy you're fighting is coach. I'm like, oh, okay, great. So we come out. I cracked him a couple times. I threw a head kick, clapped him on the side of the head. He started to go down. I hit a takedown, got him down, started passing his guard. He kind of powered up and then grabbed the single leg. He went down. I armbarred him. It's pretty bad. His arm's like pretty straight. And then I broke his arm real bad. Like I felt it was straight and he had a second to tap and he started making like gorilla noises. So I just went all in and I broke his arm real bad. I felt it. It was probably one of the worst. I heel hooked the guy in the tournament that was worse than that, but this was one of the worst breaks I've ever had. And I've had a bunch of them. I remember his arm like bit backwards in his elbow touched the ground, the inside. And I remember the arm just like, I felt because, if you're a high level competitor, you're competing a lot, you kind of know when somebody's arm's breaking. And really like when their arm pops, it's not breaking. That's just capsules kind of at first. And you can feel those capsules pop. And then after that, you kind of feel some kitchen rags tearing, like, which is kind of like the ligaments and tendons. But then there's like a break, like a cracking break. And his was to that point. It broke all the way. And I get up. And so the ref's like, stop. wait 1 second. I'm like, wait for what? He's like, well, we just need to see what's going on. I'm like, what do you mean what's going on? His arm's broken. Fight's over. The guy was like, go to your corner, son. Go to your corner. I'm like, I'll go to my corner. Call me when you want me to come fucking break his other arm. And the ref said, you shut your mouth. You shut your fucking mouth. I was like, you shut your fucking mouth. And I got into it with the ref. I was a psychopath. So anyway, they sent me back.
Hold up. It's your defense. It's your defense. They're trying to figure out a way to get you that L.
Of course.
Yeah.
So they sent me back to the corner. So I'm in the corner. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I broke that bitch's arm. And now they want him to fight again. So let him fight again. I said, yeah. Go do a check on him. The doctor comes on, like, yeah. Go do a check on him. See if I can go beat his ass some more. You see his parents? Look, his parents and his girlfriend out there crying. Let's see if we can't make him cry some more. You fucking idiots. It was ridiculous. Dude.
And let's keep in mind,
a wild animal.
This has nothing to do with Lance. This has to do with the promoter being a scumbag.
So then they went over to his corner and his arm's dangling. And they're like, can you fight? And he's like, I can't do anything. Everybody's crying. Everybody starts booing. And I won. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Like your comments have nothing to do with Everson as an opponent. It's the promoter.
I just felt like this is crazy. You guys are crazy. Yeah. But I see it now as a promoter. I see people do it all the time. I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So that was probably more people that I've ever seen in a regional show were at that show. They probably had 9,000 people there.
Wow.
It was in the Songus Arena. I remember walking in thinking, dude, this is like a UFC. I've never seen this many people at a Van Halen concert. This is crazy. So, yeah, it was awesome. Good experience.
Did fighting under that type, like big bright lights, lots of audience, did it ever affect you at all?
Mm-mm.
Not at all. That's that military. That's what that is.
I don't know, dude. I just thought I was blessed to even be doing it. I didn't really – I mean, look, we all have butterflies. We all have a little nerves and stuff. But I don't really mind that at all. Like, so I get really nervous when, like, Dustin fights or AJ or my guys fight. Like, I can't even watch it sitting down. I'm, like, walking around my house, sweating, having a nervous breakdown. I can't handle it. Even when I corner my guys, it's, like, horrible for me. But when I fought, I don't give a fuck. I didn't care at all. No, nothing. No problem.
What about early old school promoter Joe Ancona?
He's also my co-owner in Bayou Fighting Championships. We're best friends.
Him and Melvin Gillard, just, they never clicked.
No one clicks with Melvin Gillard.
There's some truth to that.
Yeah. But Joe Ancona, when I was a kid, my father was a boxer. And I trained at this place called Troy Lococo Karate. And it was kind of bullshit karate in New Orleans. It was kind of like bullshit, you know? Well, one day my dad's like, hey, you want to switch karate schools? Because I got a friend of mine. He's like a real fighter. And he's got a school where he teaches like, you know, a little more serious than kind of that shit you doing. That's how my dad talked to me. I'm like, okay. He brings me to the Riviera Health Club in Metairie. My father's a chef. So my father owned restaurants in New Orleans at the time. He brings me to the Riviera Health Club. We go up to the top. We walk in. This dude comes out with some white silk pants on and some red karate boots and like a biker mustache. And his hair is kind of parted in the middle, but it's tethered, you know? No shirt on with armbands. He walks in the room, dude, right out of Foot Fist Way. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Dude, I'm like 8 years old. My dad said, this is your new martial arts instructor, Joe Ancona. I said, what? Let's do it. So I started doing Tang Sudo with Joe Ancona as an 8-year-old. About a year in, dude, I thought Joe Ancona was the baddest dude on the planet. My dad took me to the Landmark Hotel, 9 years old. He said, all right, we go watch some fights tonight. Joe Ancona's fighting and Robert Visitation's fighting. The other guy, Robert Visitation, wore black pants, a pink gi top, and a black belt. he was like the Don Johnson of karate, dude. I thought this dude was the baddest dude ever. So you can see how demented I got. This is why. These are my influences. Joe Ancona's a psychopath. He is literally a psychopath. He was my martial arts instructor. Now you know what happened to me, sir. I go up in there.
Not your fault.
It's not my fault.
It's their fault.
Robert Visitation, head kick, knocks out some homeless guy. He wins his fight. Joe Ancona gets in there. And Joe was on these fights. Like, you remember the ESPN fights where it was kickboxing? Where it was kind of like boxing and kickboxing, but they had silk pants and no shirt.
You talk about the Shidikon fights.
Yeah, Joe fought in that. So this was one of those fights.
I love
Joe
those.
double kicks this guy, knocks him stone cold out. Listen, partner. As soon as Joe knocked that guy out, I stood on my chair at the Landmark Casino. My life was defined after that day. I said, dude, Dad, I don't give a shit about cooking, dude. I'm doing this. And so Joe Ancona was my inspiration. Many years later, when I came back to Louisiana, I went to Joe's gym. We hung out. He had a promotion called The Battle in New Orleans. I had a promotion in Lafayette called Fightville. We kind of talked and we kind of put them together. And now Joe and I own Bayou Fighting Championships together.
So you go on a little bit of a tear. You beat Lance Everson, beat Liam McCarty, you beat Edward Maxwell, and you wind up over a Bodog Fight, August 22nd, 2006. A unknown gentleman at the time known as Chael Sonnen is your opponent.
Yeah.
Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I was there.
Smash me. Yeah. Smash me for that one. It happens, you know? You fucked up. Ain't no fairy tales in fighting.
Now, how was your experience with Bodog? How would you qualify?
Good. Great. Bodog was really cool. They weren't, I mean, I don't know nothing about the guy that owned it or anything that happened with him or nothing, but they treated me and Eves very well. I know Eves fought for them even after that. I cornered him in Russia, and he was, they paid him well, and they treated us really well. I know for Costa Rica, they treated me really well. Better than I've been treated by most other promotions, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no, for sure. You met the
I
Avalon,
don't know if the money was illegal, but I don't know.
Well, having worked for them, I will say I saw things. I saw things.
I bet.
That's all I'm going to say.
You did.
You also, I mean, if my memory serves me correct, you were hanging out with the Avalon brothers quite a bit there.
Yeah. That's true. I started working with Lloyd Irvin at my for my school and some jiu-jitsu stuff, and David and Marcus were a part of that program, and you know, I'd go out to Miami and do instructor trainings at their school and train with all their guys and work with them. And I went up to Lloyd's school a bunch of times. And
you talking about headquarters? Headquarters in Baltimore. Well,
Camp Springs, partner.
Okay, there we go.
Camp Springs. But you know, as I look back at my career, man, I've just been blessed. You know, I've just been a kid who liked the sport and stayed dedicated to it enough to where I've gotten the opportunity to be around so many incredible coaches and mentors and people, and just got lucky, I guess.
You were around that time when Lloyd was dealing with all the backlash from instructors, his past. It was kind of a tumultuous moment, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
What do you recall about that time?
You know, I have to be honest about, you know, I think a lot of people have a lot of bad shit to say about Lloyd. And I think it's kind of all bullshit, really. Lloyd never, you know, people are like, oh my God, these guys were paying $1,500 a month to be in a mastermind group. I was happy about it. Lloyd changed my life, taught me marketing, taught me branding, taught me copywriting, taught me how to build funnels, what SEO was, what SEM was. I was an idiot before that. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a sales system was, I didn't know nothing. I was lost. if you look at what it costs to teach somebody all those things about business, it's way more than $1,500 a month. So I think people on the outside saw Lloyd as kind of predatorial on a lot of us martial arts school owners who were dumb. But my gyms did amazing on Lloyd's programs, and we built amazing fighters. We built an amazing program. So I have absolutely nothing bad to say about Lloyd ever. I've never seen Lloyd do anything unbecoming of a husband, father, man, person. He's always acted with me with the utmost of integrity. Yeah, I spent a lot of money with Lloyd, but Lloyd probably gave me more free shit than I even purchased. What happened with the Lloyd thing was it was around Christmas or New Year's. I think 2 or 3 guys living in Lloyd's fighter house went party on New Year's Eve, and a girl was with them who also trained with the fighters, and something sexual happened, and she was saying it was
not consensual. Yeah.
Non-consensual. I think later they proved that wasn't necessarily true. I don't know.
I think they beat the case. I going from memory.
I do. I think they beat the case. And so, I don't know. I just know things got real dark for all of us that were in Lloyd's program. And, he was a mentor to many of us, a real father figure who taught me what marketing was and who Dan Kennedy was. And first time I read Think and Grow Rich, and that's changed my life. My kids have read Think and Grow Rich, and it's changed their life. My kids are building savings accounts. My daughter wants to be a lawyer. I mean, he has given me generational wealth through the things he's taught me and helped me learn. I never had a dad like that or a parent like that who taught me about saving money and credit cards and buying real estate. And I never had nobody like that. I had Lloyd Irvin. That's it. And 90% of the stuff I learned from Lloyd was in the programs that I bought of his and watched. And like I said, I'm a pretty smart guy. I dedicated myself to learning. But I've bought $1 million building that my school's in that I'd have never been able to do without Lloyd Irvin. I've built sales systems and marketing systems that built our school into a huge school, and we're helping a ton of people. And, Lloyd was the reason why all that happened. And so whatever happened to blow that up, it wasn't Lloyd Irvin. It was some other guys who left shortly after that. And, it was a tragedy for what in my opinion, it was a tragedy. It hurt a lot of us. But dude, I was out there, like everybody was out there. Lovato was out there, Saulo and Shanji were out there. The Nagara brothers were out there.
Tad
we
Margolis.
Were all out there.
Yeah.
We were all out there, dude. Tad Margolis is a Lloyd Irvin black belt, dude. He's deep in the game. But we were all out there getting better. We were all making more money. We were able to pay our people better. We were getting the insurance. I mean, he was turning our martial arts schools into real businesses. And we didn't know what we were doing before him. So I have nothing bad to say about Lloyd Irvin. If anything, he was one of the most impactful humans in my professional life. And as a person learning how to run a business, I didn't learn shit in college. I have a business degree. I didn't learn shit in college. You know what I learned in college? Word, PowerPoint, Excel. I learned that. I don't know. What I learned from Lloyd made me more money in not only martial arts, but in every other business I've ever had by 10 times. I'm in debt to Lloyd. I owe him more than I ever paid him, and I paid him a lot of money. So I don't have anything bad to say about Lloyd Irvin. He's probably one of the best dudes I've ever seen. When I see Lloyd Irvin, I walk up to him with my hands together, and I tell him, thank you, Master Lloyd. You changed my kids' lives with his influence. So that's my take on Lloyd Irvin. Other people may have a different take. I don't give a fuck what other people have. I'm telling you my experience. I've met his wife. She's incredible. Vicky's incredible. He is dedicated to his wife. He is dedicated to his son. I've seen that. I've partied with Lloyd, and he ain't doing nothing. He ain't doing nothing.
Tim, I will tell you.
Around me.
Wait,
in my experience.
I will say this. I've never rolled I've never fought MMA. Yeah. But I tell you, I mean, based on the questions you're getting thrown at right now, I do my research. I think we can all agree on that. And I will say that Lloyd Irving at one point, the powers that be would say he's doing a black belt factory. You get it in 3 years, and they would really kind of dump on him. Yeah. And the response to that, the counter argument is, okay, the guy got his black belt in 3 years. He's beat all of your students, all of that guy's students, and all that guy's students who needed 15 years to do it. So I will say that some of those parties, nameless, have access to a lot of money. And there was a PR campaign specifically dedicated to destroying that man's image. Now, whether what took place or not, I haven't read the court transcripts. I know what the PR committee pushed forward, but I haven't read them myself. Like, I've made mistakes talking about things that I never read, and then I would read them and I would say, you know what, man, maybe I need to publicly talk about this. Gerald Strebent being one of them. Maybe I got to talk about this a little bit differently now that I know the facts.
Well, let's talk about that then. I was talking about the business side of Lloyd Irvin. If we got some people questioning the jiu-jitsu side of Lloyd Irvin, I have a story for that. I was fighting in the UFC at the time, I believe. And if I wasn't, I had just stopped. I was in great shape. And I was probably 220 pounds, 215 pounds. And I went to Lloyd's school to, hold on. Sorry, I had a phone call come through. Mm-hmm. I went to Lloyd's school to train and to learn some stuff from Lloyd. But at night, I was training with his jiu-jitsu team. And so I came in one night, and we were going to train in the gi. And Lloyd had like a special training we were going to do that night. And I was a black belt at the time. I'd been a black belt. I was a tough guy. I was big. I was strong. And I was at the height of my game, I would say. Lloyd said, all right, get a partner and pair up. The thing about Lloyd was he didn't coach and teach the same as everybody else. He was very different, very detail-oriented, very non-Brazilian type of instructor. You needed to be there on time. You did certain things. You did grip stuff. It was crazy the stuff he had you do. Completely different than any kind of jiu-jitsu you've ever done. But that day, he lined us up, and I lined up with JT Torres, who's a black belt under Lloyd Irvin.
Yeah.
Who, I think he got his black belt in 5 years, incredible talent, much smaller than me. I think at the time he was maybe 165, 170. I probably got 30 or 40 pounds on him. He said, all right, pair up with your partner. I want you to stand 2 feet away from him. Me and JT Torres stood about 2 feet away from each other. And he said, all right, I'm going to start the clock 90 seconds. I don't want you to do anything but stare into the eyes of your opponent. Click. And I stood there for 90 seconds, staring in JT Torres' face, and he stared at me. No talking. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Time rang. He said, all right, I'm gonna hit the buzzer. There's no time. Roll until you quit. JT Torres and I rolled for, I would say, an hour and 15 minutes until we eventually both I don't think either of us quit. No one else was there. Everybody had already stopped and left. And I think Lloyd was there. DJ Jackson might have been there. I think Keenan might have still been there. A couple dudes, but JT and I did about an hour and 15 or 20 minutes. And for the most part, JT beat the shit out of me. And he was about 40 pounds lighter than me. And we were in the gi, which is my discipline. And I would say JT Torres beat the shit out of me for an hour and 15 minutes. Now, look, I might have done some stuff right in that role, maybe, but that's not how I view things. For the most part, I got my ass kicked for an hour and 15 minutes by a guy who had been training less time than me. He was smaller than me. He was younger than me. He was a lower ranking black belt than me. I think he only got his black belt in 4 years. So I don't care what nobody says. If you telling me that Lloyd Irvin's belt system don't work, you full of shit. I already know what Lloyd Irvin's belt system produces. I've had my ass beat for over an hour by one of his black belts. Don't tell me about how Lloyd Irvin's guys are fuck you. I train with them all. They're monsters. He's producing jujitsu death machines up there. So you might not like how he does business or how he makes people pay or whatever, but when it comes to jiu-jitsu, Lloyd Irvin knows what the fuck he's doing, bro. I promise you. I've got the scars to prove it, bro. So that's just a little story about JT Torres beating my ass.
So Dustin Poirier on March 6, 2010, USA versus USA MMA. He fights Derek Krantz. This is, in my opinion, the first fight that defines Dustin Poirier. Derek Krantz is 9-2 with a 90% submission rate, and he's an absolute winner. And when somebody's coming off a loss that doesn't sit well with them, you've got to expect that next fight is to redeem themselves. And, Poirier really, I don't know, like he really kind of defined who he was in that bout.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I had a text. Say that again. I apologize.
Dustin Poirier, his first real test. Dustin Krantz on the independent circuit.
Derek Krantz.
So Derek Krantz, 9-2, 90% success rate. He's coming off a loss, and Derek Krantz is a go-getter. So you got to assume this is probably the best Derek Krantz that a Dustin Poirier is going to fight. It's his first real test after Nate Jolly.
Dustin wanted the fight.
Yes. Oh, really?
He begged for the fight. He begged for that fight a year before that fight because people were saying that Krantz, who's fought in the UFC multiple times, was the best guy in Louisiana at lightweight. And all Dustin wanted to do was beat him. And to be honest, at that time, I thought Derek was a little more than Dustin could handle. Derek had decent wrestling. He was good at getting on top. What he would do is he'd force you into exchanges. He was kind of a wild, hard-hitting striker. He'd force you into exchanges, and then if you clipped him, almost looked like he got knocked out, but he would change levels and scoop up that double and get you down. And I knew that he was going to be able to suck Dustin into some mollywoppers.
Yeah,
I knew he was going to be able to suck Dustin into it because Dustin's kind of that guy where when the fight starts, he's going to be smart. But then, once you start throwing and he starts throwing, it's that kid comes out, dude, and he's slanging and banging. And so I knew Krantz was going to be able to take him down because Dustin was just going to be slinging in that fight. And so that happened a couple times. And eventually Dustin I think he armbarred him. He swooped up an armbar from the bottom, if I'm not mistaken. And he was in a bad position on bottom. The guy was cracking him. And he just got his hips up high in high guard. And I remember I was saying from the corner, I was like, swing your hips. And dude, caught him in an armbar, cracked his arm pretty good. And after that fight, we were like, damn, okay. I was like, you finished Derek Krantz?
I think it defined him. Like it separated him from the pack. And
I think it did too, but I think I still knew that, a lot of Dustin's fights up until that point were like in his hometown. There was a lot of familial support. There was a lot of like sponsor support. A lot of people were kind of on his side, and it gave him a lot of confidence. And so I knew it was time for us to, what I do with my fighters is eventually, once I feel like they've built their confidence to a certain precipice, it's time for them to do an enemy territory fight, which is obviously a lot of the fights I did as a young fighter was I'd go into other people's territory, into enemy territory, and against all odds, try to snatch victory. And I think that kind of builds
character,
a certain confidence and a character to where, I'm here to fight. I don't give a fuck about all this stuff. It builds like a mental clarity that fighters need later on in their careers.
Tim, it's so important for them to grow and kind of understand, but wait a minute, the little thing I'm doing real well with at home exactly the same thing here. It's just a different pocket of people. For somebody's like mental understanding and how to grow and push past to be a champion, you have to do that.
Yeah. The UFC is going to call you and tell you got to go to Shanghai. I mean, what are you going to do? Tell them, no, it's not in Houston. That's the career, you know? So we got him a fight in Canada, and he was fighting a guy who was definitely supposed to beat him. I think the guy was undefeated at the time, and one of Faraz Sahabi's guys. And it was the guy was also on a television show in Canada, like a Bachelor, but kind of for younger, more young people. And his nickname was the Sex Machine because he smashed all those hood rats on the show all the time. It was something Gauthier. Something Gauthier was his name. I think it's Derek Gauthier.
Yes.
And
Derek. It's Derek, and they call him on here the War Machine, not to be confused with the other.
In real life, he's the Sex Machine.
The Sex
That was
Machine,
his name
right.
that night. If you watch the fight on Fightville, that fight's on Fightville, and there were some UFC scouts in the building at the time because whoever won that fight, it was kind of understood that if Gauthier won, he was going to the UFC. And so we were there to kind of take that spot, but no one was there for us.
Yeah.
We were there to suffer for our dreams, you know, and you could kind of watch Dustin and I kind of go through it there.
Okay. Well, what about his first loss, Dustin Poirier versus Danny Castillo? Danny Castillo of Alpha Male fame lost the decision in the WEC August 18, 2010. How do you help him push through that? What was his reaction to it?
Devastation. He was devastated. Just crushed, you know. He hates to lose, man. He just hates losing. It crushes him. You know, he couldn't sleep and just was so crushed. And he just wanted to fight again as soon as possible. He wanted to fight as soon as possible. He made me call Sean Shelby 12 times. Sean Shelby was a matchmaker for the WC at the time. Called Sean Shelby 12 times. They eventually got him matched with Mickelwright for the next fight. And between the time where he lost to Castillo and he didn't have a fight, he was like a nutcase. He was inconsolable. He was at the gym all the time, just training. This can't be, you know, just like crazy. Once we booked the Mickelwright fight, he was okay. But I remember one of my other black belts, Mike Guidry, was with us. And man, there was just something in Dustin's eyes at that point, like about just, I don't know, dude. He was just ferocious. I knew he was going to kill Mickelwright for some reason. I was nervous about the fight. I was like, dude, he's going to try to kill this guy. And he knocked him out in like a minute. And you watch the fight, it's almost like he's a wild animal. It's like there's not even any real technique, dude. He's like at Mardi Gras, just throwing, like hunting. And after that fight, dude, he kind of felt like he was okay. This was going to be okay. I think the first loss, he thought this was going to be the end of it, you know. But after Mickelwright, he kind of caught his head and rattled off a bunch of great victories.
And you as a coach, I mean, that's something that you as a coach have to understand where they're at and kind of guide them to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm a better coach than a fighter, but, you know, you never really know until it plays out. Just try to do your best.
Let's talk about you as a fighter. We're about an hour and 40. You got time? Because I got a couple more for you.
I probably got about 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
We'll do it quick. Cool. The Ultimate Fighter tryout experience. When did you know you got it?
I didn't want to be on the show.
You told him that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was an alternate on a couple ones before that. I think season 3, I was an alternate. Another season, they were trying to get me on and it didn't work out. And I got a job as a geophysicist, and I was was doing global geophysical work for a major oil company, and I'd gotten married, and I was kind of done, you know. I was just going to focus on my career. And they called me and said, "You're on the Ultimate Fighter." And I was like, "Oh, fuck you guys." And then Craig Pelagian called back, and he was the executive producer. And I shared with him, I just thought it was going to be full of shit. You know, I'm going to quit. I got a job making six figures. I'm going to quit my fucking job. And then, you know, these guys are going to fuck me again. And then Dana White sent me a text message or something. And I was like, all right, I'm really on the show. So I took a hiatus from work, and then I got there and I wasn't on the show. They fucking lied to me again. Turns out there was 32 guys and you had to fight to get on the show. I wasn't even on the show. So I was like, dude. But I remember just thinking, dude, there's no way I'm going back to Bro Bridge to tell my wife I quit my job and I lost and I'm not on the show and I don't know what the fuck we're going to do. There's just no way. It didn't matter who they paired me up with that night. It really didn't matter. I could have fought Jesus. It didn't make a difference, dude. I was going to win. I was just something, I don't know. And then the warm-ups and you know, there've been a couple times in my life where I felt that, you know, I felt that for my first UFC fight. I felt it the night I fought Nick Catone, and I felt it that first fight on the Ultimate Fighter. It was just like, I was in the zone, you know, I could feel it. It was just, I don't know what to say. It was like, I was in an otherworldly state, I guess. And I fought a guy who was like 14-5. Tough dude. He had knocked out 14 out of 5 people. He was from the bomb squad in New York where John Jones came out of. His dad was a pro kickboxer. Eric Charles was his name. Tough guy. And fight starts. I ran out there, punched him in the face, double leg, took him down, passed his guard, armbarred him in 21 seconds. I just, I don't know. It's just so, I can't explain it. And then the Ultimate Fighter was a wonderful experience, dude. I think for me, a kid who's grown up in adversity, you know, people are like, oh, it's so hard being in the house. I'm like, what's hard? They feed us all day, best food ever. All I got to do is train twice a day. It's the easiest life I've ever had. It's the easiest 8 weeks of my life. You guys are idiots. But that's coming from a kid who's been through suffering, you know? I didn't like living with 16 200-pound men that are stealing your food all day. You know, I was kind of a man at that point. I had a wife and a house and a life. So that part was kind of annoying, but I understood I was doing it for a real reason. So I think the Ultimate Fighter kind of lets you know, like, this life is for you or this life is not for you. And if you go into the Ultimate Fighter house and it's too much for you, well, fighting is definitely too much for you. So I think it's a good barometer as to whether or not a kid psychologically can handle the stress and rigors of a life in mixed martial arts. For me, being on the show told me all I needed to know about whether or not I needed to continue doing this. I could watch other people breaking and freaking out and drinking and crying about their wife and crying about their kids. And I was like, this is nothing. These guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about. This ain't easy, but it's not, this is not like, I've grown up with no food, you know? I know what it's like getting your ass kicked every day on the way home from school, get hit with a bike chain in the face. I know what that's like. This is nothing. This is just a TV show. This is easy.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So, Tim, yeah. Well, give some parting words. Those people out there want to know what it's like to be a veteran after, you know, the limelight, being in the UFC is, you know, kind of past you. You're now coaching. What words would you give them?
Yeah, it's a tough sport, you know. I think all of us who have participated in this sport at the level I did for any substantial amount of time, you know, you don't really realize what those guys have given, you know. And I don't think I ever really realized until now, you know, just CTE is real, TBI is real, the rigors and the pain on your body is real, but man, I wouldn't trade it for a second. Participating in mixed martial arts has been one of the most incredible experiences of my life. And I'm thankful for all the people I've been blessed with meeting and being a part of their lives and learning from. Today, I look back at my career in jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, and it's made me a better man. And that's important. That's important for my wife and my children. It's helped build a foundation of character that I'm proud of. And so I think that's what I take away from mixed martial arts. And that's what anyone should take away from a sport they participate in for so long. The whole point is to build you into something better. It's not just about the money and all the limelight and the podcast. Who gives a shit? All that shit's bullshit anyway. All that's left is the character you've built through those experiences. And I'm real grateful for the experiences. And I thank all the people for, just supporting the sport over the years and supporting me and any of my athletes. I appreciate it. We couldn't do it without the fans. I remember back in the day, looking up the results to the UFC because I couldn't afford it on MMA TV and trying to figure out who won what and where the next open mat was going to be in Southern California. And the sport's just come so far. And I think participation in mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu is something that the men in our society are need. They need some suffering and some adversity in their lives because it's a wonderful thing for you.
Joey.
All right, Tim, it was an honor training with you a couple of years ago and an absolute pleasure watching your career, being able to tell all my friends that I know that guy. He used to strangle me every day. And you're an excellent story. You're an excellent storyteller, and you've got a fantastic story. So thank you for sharing it with us.
No problem, guys. Thank you.
Take care, brother. Good luck, man. Good luck with the academy.
You guys be safe. Peace. Thank you.
One more.
Digging through all your training partners, bro.
That's right.
We didn't get to some of the questions I had. I mean, he's very, very good storyteller, obviously. We didn't hit the UFC stuff, which is good. We could have him on a second time. But he's had, I think, a couple street fights involving some people from the gym, as well as relationship with Forrest Griffin. We touched on Dustin Poirier, right. But it's like we just touched. This is about him, not about anybody else. So I'm really glad we kind of get to open those doors just a little bit for people at home.
He gave us some gold for a soundbite when he was talking about his experience with Rickson.
Oh, yeah.
How no matter what he did, it was the worst possible thing. That's what it felt like for me as a white belt rolling with him as a purple belt. So I'm glad somebody was able to put him in his place the way he used to for me.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So ladies and gentlemen, like, share, subscribe. Joey, you've seen some of our numbers. I mean, they're decent.
Right.
They're
got to get to that next level.
But to get to that next level, we're going to need a like, share, subscribe. We try to capture these. We do a consistent release every Monday. Occasionally on Thursday, if we got some extra stuff, we drop it. We're not making any money doing this. Joey and I are conferencing throughout the entire day, managing our families and that in order to kind of figure out different avenues. So if you guys can leave a review or comment on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, it would mean the world to us.
Much appreciated.
So another good one in the books.
That's right.
Who do we got lined up possibly?
We got Todd Medina, who's a yes for a couple weeks from now. That's the next one I've got in the pipe. I will continue to hound John Marsh like he owes me money. Yeah,
please. You know who else said yes to? Excited about it? JT Taylor. JT Taylor's got a real interesting career. He won the Ultimate Fighter twice.
Yeah.
And was kicked out of the UFC both times. I don't know, kicked out, but unceremoniously left the organization.
Right.
I think it's probably better for him to say it rather than me. I probably possibly framed it wrong.
He's got wins over Hall of Famers too. He beat Bustamante.
Yeah.
He had some big fights outside of the UFC. I'd love to talk to that guy.
Yeah. And it's like some people say, oh, the UFC, the tough contract's a slave contract. It's the one you don't want. Well, he got it twice and didn't have to fight a single fight on it.
Yeah, that's right.
So interesting guy for sure. Joey, always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll be texting like, two chicks at a coffee house. So
You usually are.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, brother. Nice seeing you again.
Bye.
Be good.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.